Hello, everyone, and welcome to this stream here on a Thursday afternoon here in lovely and yet cool Kitchener, Ontario. I'm Jason Hagcombe, and once again, as always, thank you all for tuning in to my live stream here where we haven't done one in a little bit. It's been kind of crazy hectic for me with my schedule and everything, but I'm finally glad to get a chance to sit down and go over a lot of the wild news that has gone on in the realm of MMA the past week or so, and as well, let's look ahead to this UFC Columbus card, the first show in a number of years now in these states outside of the UFC Apex and Las Vegas, Nevada, and UFC returning to a pretty solid market for the promotion in Columbus, Ohio on my this weekend. And obviously the big story to go that's been going around this week is from late Monday night, early Tuesday morning, the Jorge Masvidal situation where he ran up and sucker punched Colby Covington outside of a steakhouse in Miami, Florida. First of all, obviously not the greatest look for Jorge Masvidal, and I think Masvidal trying to pull it off like it's a big win for him, as something for street cred is not the best look, and I think the consensus is as well. Like, you didn't need to do that. It wasn't the smartest move for you to do. And right now, I think he's feeling the repercussions. I mean, he was arrested and put on $15,000 bond. He's made bond, according to Mark Ramundi of ESPN. So Masvidal is out of jail right now, but this whole situation it's just a gross one where when you look at everything, like, running up, punching someone in the face on the street is, and kind of outing yourself, kind of proud of it with how he was reacting on his social media, putting those videos out on his Twitter and Instagram, the show your face challenge. It's just one of those things where the sport doesn't need it. Like, the sport's trying to grow and move forward, and you don't really need to just be running up on someone who, I know you have real life beef, but as well, when you look at the situation here for Colby Covington, who he's the one as well that, pressed charges, called the police on him. I know Colby Covington's not a guy that's got a lot of street cred or anything of that nature, but it's a bad look for him, kind of calling the police, and any street cred that he had is now gone. So I also wonder as well where, Masvidal is going to make a court date April 21st, as well as the report that Mark Ramundi put out is how will this be handled? Because I kind of wonder if, MMA street talk being dealt with in terms of MMA trash talk being dealt with by the courts, will they look at it kind of how the courts treated, rap artists back in the early 2000s, whether you were a mystical who went away and did crime pretty much as well because of the actions, yes, but one of the things, he kind of incriminated himself with his rap lyrics. Same thing with Master P's brother C Murder. He ended up going to jail for a long time because of the lyrics that he was putting out. So if you talk about punching people in the face, and next time I see you it's on, or anything of that nature, Masvidal may pay the price for that and get, who knows what ends up happening. Does he actually go to jail for a long time or what? But this would be an interesting situation that we're still waiting on. And for Covington, yeah, like I said, he's lost whatever street cred he had. But honestly, like, it's just such a gross situation that I think both guys really hurt themselves. Like, Masvidal thinking this is a flex or something, it's not a good look. No one really is treating it like that. Even people like, Nate Diaz, who would have thought he was the voice of reason with one of the tweets he put out, basically calling, Masvidal an animal, and you need to stop doing this. Like, look at the sport's trying to advance and grow. And for Covington, look, we know this gimmick that he's playing has gotten him a little bit, forward with some success in his career, but I don't think it's been where he thought it would be, where he'd maybe get some other opportunities like broadcasting or become a beloved figure. Now he's just really full negative energy with this gimmick. And when you're out of character of the gimmick, he's, running into these situations. This is like the third time someone's run up and gotten physical with Colby Covington on the street. We all remember the Fabricio Werdum throwing a boomerang at him when they were in Australia a couple years ago. I know Kamaru Usman tried to run up on him during, their beefs back in 2018-19, and now Jorge Masvidal. So, I mean, this gimmick hasn't been as beloved as I think Covington thought it would be. Thought maybe like a Chael Sonnen or anything like that. Or if you're gonna go play the gimmick, you got to buy fully into the heel persona, and you can't be the one on record, calling the police or anything like that. You got to find a way to buy into the gimmick, and I don't think the gimmick's been as big of a success for Covington. In some abilities, he's gotten maybe more opportunities. It's made him someone we know who it is, but it's just not a good look. And as well, it's not a good look as well that, these guys are just talking about each other's families and things like that. Like they're crossing the line from MMA trash talk of a disagreement from two guys that train at the same gym together and have had a falling out to now it's just like personal and we're crossing lines that I don't think you want for the sport. And in a way, I think as well, the UFC needs to be held accountable because they let those guys chat up a storm about, that foolishness at the press conference, which is one of the most cringeworthy things we'd seen for a UFC press conference recently. And the press conferences for their pay-per-views have been pretty rough the past 6 to 12 months. This one was one of the more heinous ones. And when you're just bringing off that negative energy where, something, where they're talking about, if I see you on the streets, it's all, well, now Masvidal says that, and it was. So it's really not a great look for Jorge Masvidal, not a great look for Colby Covington. And I think in some way the UFC, they themselves need to be held responsible because they're all like, yes, talk that talk, but then when something like this happens, it's just for the pay-per-view and then whatever. Like you can't have it both ways. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You gotta have some responsibility in trying to, continue to grow your brand and treat it as this mainstream sport. Like you don't see situations like this happening in the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, and the National Hockey League. Like this is just only an MMA thing that pretty much happens. Even boxing's pretty civil compared to some of the stuff that's gone on in MMA. So a horrible look for really both guys, and we'll see what ends up happening when Jorge Masvidal does make his court date, April 21st. He did also put a written plea out of him being not guilty to the charge of battery. So he's going to say that he's not. And, once again, we still have to wait and see. And we'll wonder if as well Masvidal releases a statement or he, a video as well, or if he just, lets this be a thing with the court of law moving forward as well. Like we said, this is a busy week in the realm of MMA with this UFC Columbus card. We're coming off that awesome card in London, England with both the UFC and the Cage Warriors show. One Championship, they have a show this weekend, 1X, which looks to be one of the best shows in the promotion's history where, I like how they're breaking it down into pillars. Like the prelims are put into parts 1 and 2. Those are free on YouTube or wherever you could. But once you get to the main card, that's going to be available on pay-per-view. And these are some really good fights. Obviously, Wayne Parr, Edward Folyang in Muay Thai. I'm very interested in Shinya Aoki versus Yoshihiro Akiyama. Adriano Moraes taking on Yuya Wakamatsu for the one bantamweight title. And obviously, Moraes coming off the huge win where he finished Demetrius Johnson. Mighty Mouse Demetrius Johnson is on this card as well against Rodotang in this custom rules fight where I think we're all interested to see how that plays out, with one round being Muay Thai, the other being MMA. So, and then the third and final round, I guess, we're all interested to see how this goes. And then, Stam Fairtex, Angela Lee for the strawweight title. That's going to be a really good card for one. I'm very interested to see how it plays out. And I kind of interested how this model for them plays out as well, where, these bigger shows? Are they going to put them on pay-per-view, or are they going to rely on, the casual, Bleacher Report app, or like for me here in Canada, one is available on YouTube for free. Are they going to go to the pay-per-view model for bigger events, or we'll see how it plays out with that. But I like how they're breaking it down, honestly. There is rhyme and reason for how they're separating this card. And, $46 for, a main card, pretty much. I don't think that's that outrageous, especially for the level of names that are on that side of the card. But this has been a big week for arguably the number 2 promotion in the realm of mixed martial arts, and that's Bellator. Obviously, Bellator, they're gearing up for a big month next month with, obviously the Pitbull, AJ McKee fight, the rematch, which is going to be one of the biggest fights. And then, of course, they close out April with 2 shows in Hawaii. And the big feature of the Hawaii shows is going to be the Bellator Bantamweight Grand Prix. Now, the Grand Prix, I think we were all very excited for, just with the level of depth at 135 pounds in the promotion. But it took some blows this week. Obviously, Sergio Pettis, the champion in Bellator at 135 pounds, he's pulled himself out of the tournament due to a torn ACL, so he will no longer be in the tournament, meaning now there's going to be an interim title in the tournament going forward. This one I'm fine with. Okay. You're gonna, remake a fight, especially considering Rafael Stotts had earned the title opportunity. He was going to get that. That can't now happen. Okay, he's going to fight Juan Archuleta, a former champion, for this now vacant interim title, and that title will go on through the rest of the way. But when you look at the other news that came out yesterday, so James Gallagher, he's out. He's got to have some surgery. He will be out of the tournament. A big blow. Obviously, we wanted to see what Gallagher would do, coming back, bouncing back after losing to Patchy Mix. But I don't understand why the tournament's taking some hits, but Josh Hill was pretty much guaranteed to be the alternate in the tournament. Now, you gave him a fight against Enrique Barzola, who's coming off a great win at his Bellator debut in January against Darian Caldwell. But you promised Josh Hill to be the alternate in the tournament. And every other Grand Prix Bellator has done, the alternate is just filled in and gone in and had their fight. Why does he need to be in this wild card type fight to get in the tournament? And, I guess for the gimmick's sake, it's fine. But for Josh Hill in particular, who Scott Coker himself put out not only out on social media that he would be the alternate back in December for this tournament. He should be in the tournament. He shouldn't now have to fight Barzola. You should give Barzola, either Lugo or Danny Sabatello, who are going to also be the other alternate wild card fight in here. And I think that just kind of affects how I feel on this tournament, because you've promised everyone else that's been an alternate a shot. They come on in, they plug in. It's fine, no problem. But why is Josh Hill not getting that opportunity? That just seems, not a real good look from Scott Coker and Bellator. Look, I understand you signed him to this fight with Barzola, but now situations have gone on in your Grand Prix. You can make a justifiable case why Archuleta and Stotts are now fighting without Josh Hill getting the rematch, maybe against Stotts. But now he's got to fight his way into the tournament. In a tournament, he's already supposed to be the alternate. It just doesn't – it's not a good look for Bellator, I don't think, as well, especially and it kind of dampers how you feel about this tournament. Like, injuries are going to happen. That's one thing. But when you already kind of make promises and say one thing and go another way, it's not a good look for Bellator as well. So now Enrique Barzola and Josh Hill will fight, and the winner will meet Magomed Magomedov, who is coming off that loss to Stotts, but still one of the toughest bantamweights that is on the Bellator roster. And Jornel Lugo will take on Danny Sabatello, who, he's looked great in his Bellator debut. Was supposed to have another fight. I believe he had a knee injury himself, so he will fight. The winner of that will fight Higo to go on in this tournament. And it's unfortunate. I just don't like how they handled this at all. Injuries are going to happen in this tournament, but I don't like how they handled it. They've made the promise already to Joshua. Why is he not getting it? I mean, whatever. He's, how I know Josh, he's going to he's in a roll with the punches, but this is I think a bad look for Bellator, honestly, for a tournament we're all excited for, but you can't just promise someone one thing, go the other way when every other tournament the alternate's been in on it. Not a great look for Bellator, in my opinion, on the handling of that situation. It's a tournament that I think will deliver, and hopefully the fights make us forget about all that. But man, yeah, just not the best of looks for how they handled that situation. And then obviously with some of the news coming out as well, when we transition over here to this UFC card in Columbus, main event, Curtis Blades, Chris Daukaus. I think we're all excited to see how this fight plays out, especially as the heavyweight division is just picking up a lot of steam right now. Obviously, Tom Aspinall coming off the domination of Volkov last weekend in London. Aspinall yesterday on the MMA Hour said he doesn't really he wants to fight Tai Tuivasa next, but doesn't want to fight really until the next London card, which, UFC says they want to come back, but they really haven't announced a date. It's right now just a thing up in the air. They probably will come back if they saw the reaction of how the card was, but maybe end of the summer or early fall, I could see them coming back to London. So that's where Tom Aspinall is. But this heavyweight division, obviously some players are going to come out of this fight. And one of them in particular would be Curtis Blades. If you look at the UFC rankings, as I start to pull them up here, Curtis Blades has got himself a good spot in the heavyweight division. Coming into this fight, Blades is now the 4th ranked heavyweight in the division, behind Tai Tuivasa, who arguably, if there's going to be interim title fight, probably should be getting it. Stipe Miocic, who's number 2, but we haven't seen Stipe Miocic in over a year, and Cyril Gane, who he himself probably gets the crack at the interim title again with the situation with Francis Ngannou. But Blades, this is a guy that, other than that, savage knockout last year against Derek Lewis, he looked great against Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Had, maybe not the most exciting performance against Alexander Volkov before that, but he's got such high-level wrestling, putting the striking together, and taking on a guy here in Chris Daukaus who needs the bounce back, especially he got to step up in competition against Derek Lewis, got knocked out, and you just see if Daukaus can find a way to stuff some of those takedowns, keep it on the feet. I kind of do lean the stand-up a little bit to Daukaus, especially with what he's been able to do in his UFC run, where, 3 of those first 3 victories were by KO, TKO, using his hands. I find him there. But if he can't stuff the takedown, that's going to be Blades' world. He's just going to, get the fight to the ground, tire Daukaus out, look for some ground and pound, or submissions, or just ride out the decision. Blades is one of those guys well known that he's just going to fight the style of fight that he wants to fight, and so I honestly can't believe that people would be picking against it. But I mean, it's a big fight here for Blades and for Daukaus. Daukaus needs to bounce back, and I think Blades really wants a victory here to solidify himself to being close to getting a shot at getting himself in the title spot. That we don't know when the interim title fight is going to happen, but you feel it's probably going to happen with Ngannou getting the surgery. He's out pretty much all of 2022 now after his title defense in January. So yeah, that's where we're at on our main event here. And then as well, the exciting thing about this card is it's in Columbus, Ohio. Like, a good market that's had some of the best moments in the UFC, in particular Randy Couture against Tim Sylvia, UFC 68. Just a market that UFC's had some success in, but it's exciting that they're going to be back touring out in the US. And, with this show, London last weekend, and then a week off, but then when they're back, UFC 273 in Jacksonville, Florida, 3 straight weeks in front of a live audience, and it's going to be a real bummer when we go back to the Apex for the rest of April. So I wonder if that could be the last Apex cards. I hope it is, especially if you saw the crowd in London. And I expect Columbus to be just as rowdy and ruckus as London. Maybe not to that extent, but you feel that as well. I mean, Matt Brown, who doesn't love seeing Matt Brown fight, taking on Brian Barberino, that should just be an absolute stand-up banger on this card. I mean, Matt Brown hasn't fought in his home state of Ohio since he had the Eric Silva fight back in 2013. Brown looked great in his last win against Diego Lima. This fight with Barberino was supposed to happen in December last year before Brown himself tested positive for COVID. That now seems to be a thing of the past, and now he takes on Barberino, who's coming off a good win against Darian Weeks back on that December 4th show. And, he's looking to put some wins together, and Brown's, still a veteran that can really hang at a high level. The other fight that really interests me on this card is the flyweight fight between Askar Askarov, Kai Kara France. The news came out as well this week that in July, we're not sure if it's going to be UFC 276 or UFC 277, which looks to be happening in Dallas, but it's going to be Davison Figueiredo defending the flyweight title against Brandon Moreno, their fourth straight fight against each other, dating back to December of 2020. So, I mean, honestly, fine. The fights have been fantastic. They're super close, super competitive, and I could watch those guys fight forever, but winner of this fight probably has to be the one that would get the next title shot, maybe at the end of the year or early of 2023 after Moreno and Figueiredo have that fourth fight. And Kai Kara France, the guy that feels like he deserves it. He's coming off the biggest win of his career again with the biggest name against Cody Garbrandt. An exciting fight or two. Can get into some wild scrambles, showcase some good ground game. But he doesn't want to get it to the ground here against Askar Askarov, who, look, former ACB champion in Russia, hasn't lost in the UFC, has only blemish is a draw against the former champion, Brandon Moreno, and he's fought the best of the best at 125 pounds in the UFC. Tim Elliott, Pantoja, and then his last win last March was against Joseph Benavidez, and was supposed to fight Alex Perez. He got hurt. Askarov got hurt, and now he finds himself in this nice spot here against Kai Kara France. So I really see the winner of this fight probably getting the next shot in line as we wait to see which July card Moreno and Figueiredo end up having their fight on. So, as Owen here says in the chat, best case scenario, Moreno wins and Figgy can go up to 135. I mean, I could see him doing that. I mean, did have the weight issue, not the last fight, but the one before that in June of last year. But he did, make some adjustments, new camp. He looked great getting on the scale early. He was one of the first guys on the scale, made weight, and, showcased the success he had making that weight. And I think if he, continues to be with that same crew with Henry Cejudo and have that right nutritionist, right diet, I think that's going to bode very well for him. And I think you can only really go here. The winner of this fight is going to be the last fight they have. If it's Moreno, Moreno probably is going to be the champion. The division has to move away from those guys again. The fourth fight made a lot of sense. How close the third one was. This is the true rubber match because the first one, remember, it was a draw. Figueiredo kept the title. Moreno then looked fantastic, took the title from him in June, and then just in January, Figueiredo was able to bounce back, win the title. So whoever wins this fight between Moreno and Figueiredo the fourth time, that's going to be it. That's, advantage 2-1. You move on, get, a Kai Kara France. You get an Askar Askarov in the mix going forward. As well, like a Pantoja, Brandon Royval's looking really good. I mean, there's a lot of guys in this division, even, who knows where they go? How quick do they fast track Muhammad Mokaev, who looked sensational in his UFC debut last weekend to kick off the London card. So, like, this division's got some players, and then you need to start thinking about moving forward. I just think this is the final fight that they have. It has to be the final fight. You can't have them fighting 5 times, or it's just literally 2 people fighting for belt and everyone else just let your contract run out and find another flyweight division, if that. But, I mean, UFC's not going to be like that. They realize there's contenders moving up, and why not move things along? But, yeah, it's going to be exciting, too. 2 July shows. I'm excited to see that fight. Like I said, I can watch these guys fight forever. They're some of the best mixed martial artists on the world. And they've done a lot to make this division that much more intriguing, because remember, like, UFC was thinking about getting rid of it, and then Henry Cejudo was the champion, but he moved up to bantamweight and seemed pretty content being the 135-pound champion, and then he retires thinking he's going to get a better deal. And now, honestly, thanks to the fights between Figueiredo and Moreno, this is now one of the more interesting and intriguing divisions that the UFC does have. And we really need to give thanks to, the God of War and Brandon Moreno for being successful, having entertaining, successful fights, and some of the best fights that the sport has seen over the last 2 years during this pandemic time. So I'm excited to see where it goes. Crazy amount of things going on. As Jake pops here in the chat, where do you see Colby Covington next? I know he called out Dustin, but does he still make a play for the welterweight title? Well, it's going to be what's all interesting about this whole situation now, especially with him getting run up on by Jorge Masvidal, is does the UFC, how quick do they put him in a shot? Because there was the statement from Khabib, or Khabib's managers acting as Khabib, pretty much saying all welterweights should, play away from Colby Covington, and maybe they do. Maybe they don't want to, be in those situations with him. Sure, Colby can call out Dustin Poirier all he wants, but I don't think they go in that direction yet. I think Dustin wants the fight with Nate Diaz. I don't know where Nate Diaz is kind of all over the place. He's got one fight left on his contract, and it makes sense to have the Dustin fight, but then you see him every once in a while, including today, go back and forth with Conor. And that third fight would be arguably the biggest fight in the history of the sport. I think it's a fight we thought UFC would make, sooner rather than later. They've held it off as long as it's been. And maybe now's the time. That's the final fight you have at some point, third quarter, probably third quarter of 2022 here in the UFC. But for Colby's sake, you feel like he probably should get a title shot. Look, Colby Covington, the fighter, is arguably the best, or is the second best welterweight in the world. But for him right now, he can't really fight Usman in the division. So I think he may move up, or they wait and see how things go as I wind this one down.